Who is it?
Mademoiselle Carvier, it's Lara Croft. I need your help.
After the first remaster of the 3 original games released, I didn't expect that there would be another one, because I saw many negative comments on the different forums about the controls, camera and outdated gameplay as for players who grew up on the modern games. However, I was pleasantly surprised and was waiting for this remaster even more than previous one. Why? I will tell you now. Before making a review, I completed all 3 games to form my opinion. And it was funny to see how many actors on YouTube posted reviews with first impressions within 24 hours, where they went through the first levels and talked mainly about the graphics and controls, which haven't changed from the previous games. Maybe they already played the original games and already have their own opinion about those games, but I completed only the Angel of Darkness game and played the previous 2 games at a friend's PlayStation 1. My impressions were very fragmentary. Therefore, in this video I will talk about the change and my impressions about all of these games, and this will be very useful for new players who haven't played the original game. I will start with the common changes. All games have standard and modern controls. I talked about them more detailed in the previous review that you can find on my channel, so I will not repeat myself. I will only say that many gamers can get used to the modern controls and return to the standard one. I couldn't get used to it for a long time, but when I did it, it seemed to me really more convenient than the standard one. In terms of graphics, not much has changed compared to the previous remaster. Everything looks quite attractive. A lot of grass and details on the wall, and support for modern monitors and a smooth picture at 60 frames. The 4th and 5th game have the same engine and looks the same. The change affected only Lara herself. The chest has been pumped up even more, but her body has become less expressive compared to the previous part, for which the developers can be seriously blamed. I will talk about this game separately, further in the video. One of the new features that was added in this remaster was ability to make small cutscenes in photo mode. It looks quite interesting, and creative people will like this feature. Having figured it out, you begin to understand that all the cutscenes in the game are made in this way. But the mode is only available for the 4th and 5th game. Now I will move on to my impressions of the game themselves. This remaster is unique because the story of all 3 games is somehow connected. If in previous remaster each game was like a separate adventure of Lara, then the 4th game began with Lara's childhood and ended in the tomb, and the 6th game had a direct plot continuation of the 4th. And I will start with the 4th game. One day, Van Croy met Lara's father, a British aristocrat named Lord Croft. During his expedition to Cambodia, Van Croy needed money, and Lara's father agreed to sponsor his expeditions, but on the condition that his daughter would travel with Van Croy and see the world as well. Actually, the story begins with the 16-year-old Lara's childhood, where she is raised by her mentor Van Croy. While exploring the tomb, Van Croy neglected to look at the walls and corners, which gets him into trouble. Lara, seeing that the ceiling is collapsing everywhere, runs away, leaving Van Croy in trouble. A few years later, they meet again, chasing the same artifact, but as enemies. The game itself is very atmospheric, and of all the 5 games, I like this one the most. Even playing now, and not at the time when the original graphics were considered familiar, the game feels great. When I was playing, I had a strong feeling that I was the main character of Mummy or Indiana Jones movie, since these 2 films were very popular in the 2000s. And the plot of the game is very similar to the plot of these films. There are great atmosphere, interesting puzzles, and various enemies that are perfectly fit the settings, and car chases, and showdowns on chain. In general, everything you need for a great adventure. And I think that players who haven't played the original game will like it. The game ends with the tomb collapsing, Lara trying to get out, but she meets Van Croy at the entrance. He offers his hand as a help, but stones start falling from above and Van Croy runs away, leaving Lara in the tomb. After that, there were no news about Lara. And here we go to the 5th game of the remaster, which begins with the Lara's funeral. Later, her friends gathered around the fireplace, where they began to remember her adventures, each of whom told an episode from their lives, where he and Lara went on some business. And this game for me is the least interesting of all 5 games in this remaster. I remember my friend who had a PlayStation 1 excitedly told me a story of the 4th game when we met. And when the 5th game appeared in the store, he ran before the store opened to buy a disc with the game and find out what happened to Lara. When I called him and suggested to play football, he invited me to his house to play this game together. We wandered around for a long time and were confused about what we should do on the first level. After a few hours, we went to play football. A few days later, he told me that he completed the game, but still didn't understand whether Lara was alive or not. Playing the game, I unlocked my memories of the past, but this didn't make the game interesting to me. It looks like different mini-stories that are not connected by the common plot. So-called Tales from the Crypt, when a group of people tell stories about this and that. The levels look empty. There are few enemies on them and bosses don't pose much of a threat. Some of them can be killed before they even get to you, and the snake in the first story can be simply killed by jumping from side to side. I did not like the level design either. They look long, empty, without any interesting puzzles. The only story I really like was the story from Lara's childhood, where she is unarmed and cannot fight enemies. The story is very atmospheric, but there is also a bucket of crap in the form of a puzzle with a rotating tower and bridges. At this point, the Tomb Raider series of games end, which have approximately the same gameplay and can be somewhat similar to each other. Now let's move on the sixth game, which many players took with hostility and called the Black Flag of the series. The story begins with Lara and Von Croy meeting, where Von Croy tells her about the obscure paintings and Lara doesn't want to help him because of the events in the fourth game, accusing him of leaving her alone in the tomb. What a irony of fate, right, Lara? Oh well, during their conversation, they being attacked. Lara hits her head hard and loses consciousness. When she wakes up, she found her hands in blood, as well as the dead Von Croy. All suspicions fall on her and she tries to find the killer to clear her name. The sixth game, called Angel of Darkness, is very different from the previous games, and the differences are felt in absolutely everything. Let's start with Lara. She looks like a 20 years old student. Also, judging by the story, it is year 2003, and Lara was born in 1968. That is, she is 35 years old. Not badly preserved for her age. And despite the dramatic change in Lara's appearance, I like her appearance. The biggest dissatisfaction among all players is caused by the controls. The game has moved to a new engine, which is evident both in the visual style and in the possibilities that the game provides, but at the same time it has added many problems. For example, there is some kind of delay between pressing a button and her actions in almost all of the Lara's movement. In order to climb on a small ledge, you have to approach, stop and press towards the ledge. If you run, Lara will not jump onto it. This greatly slows down the pace of the game. When jumping, it's very difficult to estimate the distance where she will land. Sometimes it seems to you that the distance is incredibly large, and Lara will fall before the platform. And sometimes you try to jump to a certain place, and she jumps over it. All this gives the feeling that you are driving a tank that drifts on the turns. Battles with enemies turned into lazy shooting. While in previous games you run about the enemy and jump in different directions, shooting the enemy, now you have to stand still. You won't be able to attack on the move. This really pisses me off, since such combat was extremely boring, but when I was playing the remaster I didn't feel this discontent, since I quickly killed my enemies, and they didn't have time to inflict much damage to me. Many players were terribly annoyed by the new stamina system, where Lara can no longer hang on ledges indefinitely. Personally, I took this mechanic easy, and it didn't cause me any discomfort. Also, many players were annoyed by the mechanics of strength when interacting with objects. The thing is that Lara can't move some objects until she gets stronger, and to do this she needs to move another object on the level. This leads to situations where you have to look for the right object. In terms of level design, this will allow to restrict access to certain sections of the level until you perform actions in another, but many players don't like these mechanics. Personally, I don't see anything terrible in it, since in many previous games you had to run across half a level to press a button that would open a door God knows where. But unlike previous games, the levels here are small, and it will not be difficult to return. Also, many complaints about the setting of the game. In all previous games, Lara explored different tombs and tried to find artifacts. And here she is in a modern city, running around apartments and rooftops and fighting bandits. Personally, I didn't like all the London maps in Tomb Raider 3, and I didn't like the city maps in Chronicles, but I can say the same for here. I would say that it's not better or worse, it's just different. Many players are throwing shit at this game, but I would like to talk about positive aspects of the game, which is why I don't think it's so bad. I would like to start with the cutscenes. they are all made on the game engine, and they are very dynamic here. Due to the frequent change of camera and different angles, these cutscenes are interesting to watch, as if you are watching a movie. I really like the chase episode from the very beginning, where they unleash dogs on Lara and she tries to escape. Another great episode is Lara's escape from a mine store, where a mysterious stranger watched her finishing a cigarette. Someone will object that there is nothing special here, but do not forget that the game was released in 2003, and compared to Chronicles, I think this is a very powerful leap forward. And what about the scene where the stranger meets Lara face to face for the first time and pulls out her pistols? The developers were able to convey the tension between the characters perfectly without a single word. At that time, I don't remember a single game where there was something like that, and I was ready to forgive the game for many things that I don't like. The graphics also unusual, and the image of Lara was difficult to perceive after her brutal adventures, but still it felt quite modern at the time. The game also had effects of rain, gases, fog, splashes of water and other things that enhance the atmosphere of the game. All of this was absent in previous games. Despite many complaints about the combat system, stealth appeared in the game, and now it's possible to knock out the opponent by sneaking up from behind. Unfortunately, this didn't always work, since the speed of sneaking was almost the same as the speed of enemies. And be sure, they will notice you even with the slightest of your mistakes, but I still enjoy it when I managed to eliminate the enemy without wasting ammo on him. In this game, they introduce a role-playing system where you can choose the phrases that Lara will say. Basically, they are divided into rude ones where Lara demands answers, and those where Lara asks for help. In some cases, Lara could be shot or refuse help if you choose a rude dialogue. And although dialogues could have been removed from the game altogether, I still constantly thought about whether I would get a slap on the wrist if I was too aggressive. I want to note the level design. They became smaller and some levels are separated with a loading screen. Some players may dislike this, but perhaps it was necessary measure due to the engine. Personally, I didn't find this system annoying. Many puzzles will be solved in one location, and the levels themselves were very different from each other. All this gave the feeling that you were constantly in different places. In some levels, it became possible to look through a security camera, exploring the room and looking for a code. I like games like Find the Object, so I like this innovation. I especially like some levels, for example, 4 Seasons, where you have to pass the test of the elements and fight all 4 elements. Despite the fact that I jumped in the wrong places many times due to the unpredictability of Lara's jump, I still like the levels. There were also annoying bosses, which many players complain about because of their toughness. This includes a host that is impossible to kill, and the charm of sun is not enough to grab the painting, and a spider boss that launch acid where you can be stuck if it hits you. But still, I passed them on the 3rd try, when, as I was a child, they seemed incredibly difficult to me. I really like the level The Sanitarium, where we play as a stranger who can fight close combat and throw a check room for the first time. I may be wrong, but you couldn't do this in the original game, while in the remaster you had the opportunity to use a check room, which will allow you to save ammo for the battle with the bosses. What I like the most is the atmosphere of the game. This is the first game where your actions are interrupted by other actions that are happening in the same moment. Here you run into the building and run upstairs, as the camera shows that the police have already burst in few floors below. Here you are visiting a Vonkoris friend who called the police, and while you are searching her estate, you are shown the police going up to the floor and they're about to enter. And all this makes you feel like you don't have time to waste. You have to hurry because you are being chased. In conjunction with the good cutscenes, great soundtracks that build up the situation, interesting levels and good graphics in the remaster, I really enjoyed playing The Angel of Darkness, and I can definitely say that it is not that bad as players say about. Many people may wonder about change in the remaster. Well, the graphics are really not much different from the original, but Lara looks much better, and also her butt and breasts were enlarged. And I haven't seen this mentioned in any review. And yet, they added breast physics. It is present in all of Lara's movement and even cutscenes. In general, except of graphics and controls, this remaster doesn't bring anything special, but it gives the opportunity to play the wonderful 4th game and quite good 6th. Well, if the major was with you. Press the like button if you like this video, leave comments and your thoughts about this game, and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss new videos. Support me on Patreon and buy me a coffee, because the more support, the greater the desire to make new videos, and I will just be pleased that someone supports me. Bye everyone!